Hello and welcome to The Society with Fatma Shaheen at PTV World. Now, fashion, as we all understand, is not only a very effective form of communication, it is also a very strong socio-cultural force which of course has a very grave impact on the society too. How has Pakistani fashion evolved over a period of time? How has it impacted the society at large? This is something upon which we'll be shedding light during the course of today's conversation. Overall, we'll be talking about the main fashion trends that we do see so as to become very popular over a period of time. In this regard, we'll also be talking about not only female fashion but also about men's wear, about men's changing fashion choices. We'll be talking about the impact of technology, more particularly the social media, so to speak, when it comes to the ever dynamic and the ever evolving fashion industry of the country. We'll also be talking about, how over a period of time the Pakistani fashion industry has become more inclusive, how it has become more diverse, and last but not the least, we'll also be shedding light upon the fact that when we talk about sustainable fashion, what is its future in Pakistan? This and much more to follow on today's show, and to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Miss Saira Agha, who's a fashion and lifestyle editor. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Alongside her, I have Mr. Shoaib Shams, who's an international menswear expert. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
And via telephone line, we'll be joined by Sara Javed Gandapur, who's a fashion designer. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're most welcome. Now, before we start the conversation on today's topic, let's have a look at this brief report.
The Pakistani fashion industry is global.
Growth and availability to
women's growing independence. We have seen in recent years many designers are highlighting social issues like dowry and child marriages through their work.
Fashion plays a vital role in shaping the community and the society. A lot of people follow these brands and they see their campaigns, which helps the brand to educate the people. Like the prevailing issues of dowry or child marriages.
Nowadays, designers and brands are moving towards adopting a sustainability-conscious approach.
fast fashion has proven to be detrimental to the society with new articles coming in every day and people jumping from one design to the other. But lately, because of its detrimental effects on the society and the environment as a whole, we see people switching towards sustainable fashion because, one, with the inflation going on, it is lighter on the pocket because you're recycling old products, and designers are coming out with eco-friendly clothes as well, which again avoid a lot of allergies and other problems that are going on in the environment. And as a whole, again, to save the planet and earth.
Fashion in a society is also reflective of the creativity of the individuals residing therein. Pakistan's fashion industry has come a long way and it is only expected to flourish in the coming years.
Welcome back. We just saw the report. Now to start the conversation with you, Sarah, I think for starters, we must talk about, the historical evolution of the Pakistani fashion industry as it has evolved over a period of time. So from the time that, Pakistan did not have a proper defined fashion industry to what it is today, how do you see this evolution happening?
Assalamu alaikum ji. Fatma, to begin with, I think I would like to say that before the partition, we had sort of a joined heritage. The subcontinent had, Indians and now Pakistan. So when they were together in the subcontinent, so there were specific fashions that were, connected more with the lifestyles of the Hindus or the Muslims. If you really look at it that way, so I think in that sense, we've always had our own sense of fashion in Pakistan. So then later on, after post-partition, when the partition took place, we had a, new country and sort of we were, growing ourselves. And then the 60s and the 70s came, and then, the hippie influence was there. The Western influence was there. And but, Bhutto Saab was the first Muslim Prime Minister who actually endorsed the fashion of shalwar kameez. And from then onwards, I think in the 80s, we had a very distinct style that was developed, through the shalwar kameez and the baggy shirts and all that.
So that time, if I may add that, this was a time when the politicians back then, they were kind of the trendsetters. And also, of course, we can't forget the PTV dramas too, because a lot of people used to see the PTV dramas and, the clothing and the wardrobe that basically the actor and the actresses wore back then. And these were the people who actually gave others influence to follow lead. On which I'll come to you, Saira. I think in this regard, you would also have your own narrative to add, because there was this time in the 1960s where Pakistan was very heavily influenced by the Western culture and also by the hippie culture, so to speak. Bell bottoms and t-shirts, they were very common back then. So how do you see overall, us moving from that hippie culture to what it is today? Because we have come a long way since then.
So Fatma, first of all, I would like to shed light on what Sarah just said.
Right.
I feel like there was a time when you talk about the evolution of fashion, I feel like there was a time when Pakistan was, since we didn't have any originality in our own fashion scene, there was a hodgepodge of inspirations from either India or the West. And there was no original line of fashion or any kind of, anything going on here. But now I feel with these iconic politicians, like Sarah just mentioned, like there was Benazir and there were so many others. Now, so many years later, Pakistan is at an all-time high when it comes to fashion.
Right, of course.
I mean, our fashion designers, they are really sought after. I mean, if you talk about Bollywood stars, they are wearing more Pakistani designers than they're wearing their own.
Right. And this is the best thing, Saira, because you see, they have helped us carve a very niche identity for Pakistan internationally.
That's true. Right. Fashion is more based on trends, on what is running. Style is something that is... It's something that you're born with. I mean, even if you're wearing casuals or you're at the airport or you're at the gym or you're even at a funeral, I mean, it's just something, the way you dress, that people want to look at you. I mean, you make a statement when you enter a room. So I feel that has more to do with style than fashion. Fashion is just embracing what the current trends are. I mean, when you enter a room. So then all heads turn, that is your style.
Exactly. On which, sir, I'll come to you. I think in this regard, it's very important to talk about, the ever-evolving menswear fashion trends. Because, generally we see in the past few decades that, men's fashion wear, that has been picking up quite a lot. Now, I think the average Pakistani man, regardless of the fact whether they belong to the media industry or not, they are more interested in looking good and, they want to make an effort actually to look nice. So what reasons would you attribute to the same? Do you feel it's because of, social media? Do you feel it's because of globalization? Or are they some way or the other competing with, their women counterparts?
It's all of the above, actually. Globalization, if I were to rank them, globalization would be the first aspect, where you actually are now exposed to the world. You actually see how people dress and you realize we had so much potential to look nice, but we're not looking nice. That's one. Second, social media adds to that, to the fact, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do this. Yes, your body shapes is this, but you can look better because these clothes are made for you. Previously, because a decade or 2 decades ago, you see the women were the limelight, right? Everything was around them, and they would look nice. All uncles and those guys would be just in one side, just walking in, just being present, accompanying them. But now it's not the case. If you see, like within the society, there'll be a lot of couples where men have more fashion sense within that couple, and they give advice to their wife, and that is very, very prevalent.
And in this regard, I would want you to particularly talk about, younger men, because I think generally the trends that we do observe, in ever evolving menswear fashion trends is that generally men have become now more bold with their choices of colors and the kind of clothes they wear. Like, perhaps a decade ago, we would not be seeing men wear floral prints, but now they do.
10-15 years ago, there were hardly any options for men to go to shops and buy clothes for themselves. But now when you go to a commercial market, there are as many menswear shops as there are for women.
Right.
So awareness in general.
No, that is true. Awareness has created the market. The market has created the actual designers, right? Actually, they're more now dressing up based on occasion. Previously, it was just like, I want to get a shirt
just
and
a pair of jeans and two
shirts. And then
it.
wear it wherever. But now when they go to office, they have an office where they want to look good. If they have a meeting, they prepare that
and
way.
then they have that casual wear. Good,
it's going to build the society up, because now everyone is looking good. Everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to have a better,
because
habits.
When you feel good, that just brings about this whole new personality in you. It ups your confidence
That's
level.
very right. So moving on, I think in this regard, it's also very important to then talk about the fact that, despite the fact that we see overall men generally in Pakistan taking more interest in, of course, the way they dress up, in their fashion choices, so to speak, there's still, unfortunately, that segment of the Pakistani society which kind of judges them on this. Men, one way or the other, perhaps might deem to be less masculine if they are very fashion oriented. So what importance would you attach to such claims?
First of all, I would like to add that what was being discussed earlier on the show, that like Saira very rightly said, that there's a difference between being fashionable and stylish. I feel that it's a very cultural thing as well, because since I grew up in KPK, so I saw the men around me in a very different fashion. The men there were more. So to say that men nowadays are more stylish, I wouldn't really say that, but men do give more attention to their, what they're wearing, and there's a lot to choose from, like Saira already said.
Right.
So, but I would still say that the fashion nowadays is more influenced by social media for men.
Right.
But I still feel that everybody has their own sense of style. And
moving on, we must also, of course, talk about the ever-evolving fashion trends that we do see in the Pakistani society. We understand that, young people particularly, they are very, religiously following all these social media trends, more particularly on Instagram. But how do you feel can we, actually find that balance between following what is in and what is out and not letting it kind of overwhelm you and your personality?
I think the easiest way to do this would be that, you always just have to decide what looks good on you rather than what others are telling you will look good on you. So, fashion trends define what's in and what's out.
Right.
But your own style statement actually lends it to you that, it kind of borrows itself that, okay, I am a bigger built person. So this fashion is more for a slimmer built person. So, I could maybe mix the two. That's what I do, and that's what I advise most of my clients and people I work with. And also the fact that, fashion should be sustainable. A lot of people don't believe or agree with this, but I kind of agree with it, that, sustainable fashion is the future with the climate change and so much happening in the environment and everything. So it's always better to invest in safer fashion rather than just, a fashion trend that's going to pass away with time.
Right, Sarah. So on which I'll come to you. So would you agree with what she said? Because there are two quarters of the Pakistani society, one which is very opposed to the concept of sustainable fashion and one which is very pro it. So do you feel that we have that potential of moving towards sustainable fashion? And when we talk about sustainable fashion, it's just not about, acquiring sustainability with regards to the final garment. I'm also talking about sustainability with regards to the production, with regards to the manufacturing, or even for that matter, transportation.
No, that is true. But you must consider the fact that our fashion industry actually, contributes just 0.001% or whatever.
Right.
Very small figure towards the total global environment effects, right? So, I mean, we really, even if we try very, very hard, there aren't many areas that we really can contribute at a global scale.
Right.
Maybe at our scale also, will probably be at a very low level. Even globally, if you see internationally, the brands that had come out with sustainable like bags from used plastic or whatever, they're not mainstream as of yet.
Right.
They are, yes, they're mainstream in news, they're mainstream in media, but they're not mainstream as of in the markets. They still have that fast fashion trends.
Right.
All across Europe and US and everywhere, even in Pakistan. And I feel that is the main contributor towards environment. As soon as people start wearing the same cloth more often, less production.
Basically, I think you mean to say that in terms of basically adopting the responsible fashion practices that we need to as, of course, a responsible society who actually strives to be more eco-friendly. I think the trend should change towards, wearing more rented out clothes, perhaps wearing more second-hand clothes, or for that matter, even recycling clothes. Journalists like yourself, they have a very important role to play too, because a lot of people, they have, they very religiously follow you on social media, and you are, both as a fashion journalist and as an influencer, have that power to set fashion trends. So how can you use that power to actually advocate for sustainable fashion in the country?
Well, beforehand you mentioned something about social media, making people aware of sustainable fashion and the way that they should improve and they should dress up. I would say the social media has, because it has burst into the scene of late, it has created this awareness in general that so many markets are now opening up, because now people are demanding sustainable fashion and ways to sort of clothe themselves and look stylish at the same time. Because of late, the awareness has made every woman knowledgeable enough. I mean, they know how to put their makeup on, they know how to match their shoes with their bags, they know how to go about and look stylish and very fashionable.
Right.
So I don't take that kind of pressure because it comes very naturally to me, and I follow it with fierce passion. So I never approach stylists. I would always look at icons, like the fashion icons, like the celebs, like the clickbait celebs, and how they are going about their style statements and everything. I would run fun columns about the do's and don'ts, because these are the kind of features that people love to read.
Right, Saira. So I think in continuation to that, I think a very important question which also arises is the fact that, when we talk about people's journalism, or for that matter, fashion and lifestyle journalism, we understand the fact that, it is that basically area of a journalism where you have to, kind of get a little personal with the person that you are interviewing, be it about their fashion choices or about their personal preferences. Now, this again is kind of a very difficult task to do, because you have to ensure that your story is engaging, you have to ensure that your story is peppy, but at the same time it also respects the dignity of the person being interviewed. So how particularly as a fashion journalist do you actually strike that balance?
Well, Fatma, my job is to report the facts and to write about what's happening and to interview people and to really get into their minds and extract something out from them that they otherwise wouldn't be saying to other journalists, right? I mean, this is how you distinguish yourself as a journalist from the other lot. My job is not to please everyone. I mean, there is only so much that I can do in order to make the other person feel really happy once their article comes out in the paper. Also, when I'm heading out of the door every day, my job as a journalist is not to discourage arts and culture. I mean, if I have some critique to do, for example, if I'm doing a fun column, I would, so I would sugarcoat it in a way as not to offend the other person really, really bad. Because, it's like how I was saying earlier, fashion journalism forms a very minuscule fraction of co-journalism that there is in the country. And we are just a handful of journalists, right? Already I feel that a very grim and a harsh reality of the country's politics is being portrayed to the media. I won't get into the facts of what's right and what's not, but I feel that arts and entertainment is the only way that we can show a very progressive image of the country.
And I think it's very much needed too, because you see, when you're seeing so much, kind of issues all the time, be it on electronic media media, social media, print media. I think this is that one kind of place where people want to actually recoup, they want to revitalize themselves.
And people all over the world are now flocking to watch our dramas, our shows, and they don't mind. I mean, if they're not being aired in their own country, they don't mind taking a flying abroad to watch our movies or to stream our shows online. And it's just like how I mentioned earlier, that our fashion designers, our fashion scene is at an all-time high. Bollywood celebrities would rather wear our designers than wear their own, because this is how much they're loving
how things are basically. And I think in this regard, it's very important that, Pakistani fashion industry has actually contributed in helping Pakistan shape its international identity. And this is something that we need to highlight. On which I'll come to you, Sara. I think in this regard, it's very important to talk then about, the level of diversity, the level of inclusivity that we as a fashion industry have achieved. So if you were to actually analyze the trends that you do see as a fashion designer, would you agree with me on this, that is Pakistan's fashion industry over a period of time become more inclusive, more diverse, more particularly when it comes to, catering to the needs of the different segments of the Pakistani society?
First of all, I would like to add that Pakistan fashion scene is definitely making headlines across the globe. And definitely the Pakistani designers are making waves. And as Saira rightly said that, Bollywood stars and even the British royal family are choosing to wear Pakistani designers. And I'm sure we all remember when Lady Diana came to Pakistan, she wore Rizwan Beg's beautiful pearl-encrusted white shalwar kameez with a stole. And that actually made headlines and covers internationally. And then later on, the Duchess of Cambridge came and she wore different designers in Pakistan. As a designer, I've done a lot of international shows and in different countries over the past 2 decades. And every time I've participated in different shows with different designers internationally, they've said one thing to me, that Pakistani fashion is so good, it's so beautiful, it's wearable, and it's very easy, and it looks really rich, and all of that, because our culture is very rich and colorful.
That's very rightly put by yourself, that it is very rich and it is of course very colorful. But when we talk about the level of inclusivity in terms of the affordability, in terms of it being able to cater to different segments of the Pakistani society, what would your viewpoint be with regards to that?
Fatma, because, I totally agree with you on that sense that, that a lot of people now, even designers are taking out sublines. So it was made easily affordable and available to the masses. Because you see, we have to keep one thing in mind, that not every single person can afford, one outfit or one ensemble, which is for lakhs, and you probably won't even wear it because, in our society, unfortunately, we can't really repeat the same clothes. Right. So I think that more and more designers are now turning towards this, including myself, that we are trying to look for more sustainable fashion. And also the fact that you can make separates, which you can wear with different outfits and create a whole new outfit. With the same old outfits,
Right, Sara. On which I'll come to you, sir. I think she's raised quite a few, points with regards to addressing, the level of inclusivity that does exist in Pakistan's fashion industry. But what would your viewpoint be with regards to men's fashion wear?
Men have been very much inclusive or included in the past decade, especially. So it's easier for men to include men of different segments and different parts of the society, especially because men's fashion isn't as expensive as women's clothes are, which are really high-end. So
but men's suiting is very expensive, especially branded designer wear suiting, luxury wear, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's on the very luxury side, right? But there are a lot of really big and important segments which create it to be expensive. But then you can have the same sort or same, I wouldn't say go as far as saying same silhouettes, but same type of clothing for all categories of the masses, right? So you can have a suit for even like 20,000, 25,000, which might not look as good as the very expensive one, but it is still there. So the inclusivity is there. If the desire is there of the men to become very stylish and fashionable, I don't think there's anything stopping them. And that's what we see in the younger lot actually doing, going towards that area of looking nice, looking good, looking very pertinent for the occasions where they're
right, sir. And for that, I believe that, we have social media to give due credit to, on which I'll come to you, Saira. I think in this regard, your viewpoint as a fashion journalist is extremely important. So how do you feel have we moved towards inclusivity and diversity? Because I think the good part of the fashion industry now is that, it just doesn't take those people on board. And I'm talking about, models, even actresses per se, who comply with our conventional Pakistani beauty standards. It's generally more inclusive of all kinds of women out there.
I will walk you through it and focus on the diversity and inclusivity. I feel that with the passage of time, actors, models, singers, men, women, both, they are becoming more secure about their skin tones, about their body weight, height, and about their looks and appearance in general. That has a lot to do with how much your seniors, your peers, or contemporaries are encouraging you, the way they are giving you the confidence and the way they're helping you groom. So I feel that security, being secure with your skin tone, with your appearance, with your looks. So many fashion weeks, I see models who are of all body weight, height, and complexions, and they are strutting the ramp like a boss. They're doing it with a level of confidence that is almost tangible. And thankfully, the fairness creams and all these fairness lotions and all these ads, which used to make no sense at all, they have perished over time. Because with the help of social media, people are now advocating for the promotion of their original skin tones, and they're creating hue and cry about, these kind of ridiculous ads. So that has also given a chance for so many model singers and actors to embrace how they're looking, their skin tones, etc.
Saira, on which I'll come to you, Sara. I think in this regard, it's also very important to talk about, of course, the potential that fashion has had in terms of bringing about positive social change. And in this regard, we've seen that not one, rather several fashion designers have very actively contributed to the society by virtue of, even for that matter, dedicating their entire, designer wear lines to the cause of child marriage, or for that matter, dowry, and even mental health, I remember. So in this regard, as a fashion designer yourself, how do you feel can fashion designers give back to the society? How can they advocate for the issues that actually matter?
On a positive note, I think that the Pakistani designers have really put in a lot of effort in highlighting social causes. And like you said that, many designers have put out collections, entire collections based around those social issues and taboos. I think also fashion has really, because I'm an animal rights activist as well, it's a, first and foremost passion of mine. Even when you come to a sensitive issue like animal fur and all, and skins being used for fashion, a lot of designers who are using them, there are other designers who are actually, saying ban the fur and ban skins and all. And they've actually put out collections out there. So definitely fashion internationally and in Pakistan has, made a huge contribution. And I think we, being, your platform as an amazing platform to actually promote this. And, the responsibility falls on our shoulders as feminists, like a journalist, as an anchor person, as a designer, as a menswear designer. I think the best way to move forward is to join hands and work in collaboration. And when you do that, and there's more positive energy, and you're actually putting out more positive vibes in the universe, and you're actually sending out a message to the world that, Pakistan is a very progressive country, and given the ups and downs in the country, and that happens everywhere in the world.
When you're actually shopping abroad, you come across the fact that, you're actually buying something which was made in Pakistan.
And that's a really good feeling at that time. And I do remember that Nicole Kidman also wore a Sindhi choli at one point, and, it was again highlighted that, the Sindhi culture of Pakistan is quite similar to that of India's Rajasthan. So there's there's sometimes often confusion between their fashion and our fashion. But I think with the fashion journalism being at an all-time high in Pakistan, I think that these guys are doing a fantastic job when they write, they talk about fashion and then, put it out there for the world to see that, Pakistan is, again, making really good clothes. The designers are doing really well. Right. And, the journalists are really good. And Pakistan is definitely a place to visit. And I think in
these
coming
are the
years,
things that we need to highlight more. So coming towards you, sir, I think in this regard, we must also, talk about the potential of Pakistani fashion being able to promote our positive image abroad. So in this regard, what are the things you, as, international menswear expert, feel need to work on? Do we need to have, enabling policies to that fact? Do we need to, ensure that fashion designers work on the same page with other stakeholders, or do you feel the Pakistani media has a very important and pivotal role to play?
I think all of the above. Media, I think, is pretty much doing their job, which is locally, and then obviously the thing and the news and the events have to be picked up by the international media. I'm sure Sarah can probably answer that more appropriately. But at a global scale, if you really want this to really be projected, there was a time ago, a decade ago, when you would have seen our embassies actually conducting some fashion shows where a lot of the very famous designers became famous because of that. And then that trend stopped. So now all the designers have to really work on their own self, go and spend money and all of that stuff, which limits their budgets and limits the ability of a lot of designers to travel, who might be really good, but might not have the ability, capacity, or the customers there to actually do that. So very enabling environment provided by the government, and especially the embassies there, because the use case is already there. It has already been done. It has already created designers which are world famous right now. So why not just keep replicating that over and over again? So I think that is very important. And second is that our fashion industry obviously has to come together and support the smaller guys also, the new designers also.
Those with limited resources, so to speak.
Generally we tend to, whenever an opportunity like this comes up from the government, we tend to see all the major designers taking the opportunity and running with it, whereas it needs to be somehow managed that all the other newer guys on the block, the young kids on the block, need to get an opportunity of actually expressing themselves.
And sir, I think in this regard, it's equally important to be mindful of the fact that when we talk about making, fashion accessible for all, here we need to basically cut down on the various barriers which do actually exist when it comes to accessing the fashion industry.
Yeah, there were a lot of barriers initially, but I think the social media and the ability of reaching a market without any in-between organization, you might want to say it, has really made the market bigger. And that's why you see a lot of new designers coming up, because that barrier has been removed, which was set up by whoever is who.
On which I'll come to you, Saira. I think in this regard, when we talk about doing away with the barriers which do actually exist with regards to entering the fashion industry, do you feel over time that, social media or technology for that matter has been that one factor which has actually helped enter into the fashion industry when previously it was very difficult?
Fatma, why do you think that these fashion weeks have ended all of a sudden? I mean, there was a time when these fashion weeks were on the rise. I mean, there were solo shows happening, there were exhibitions happening, there were all these big corporate sponsored fashion weeks that used to be held on like 4 or 5 days, and so many fashion designers used to pay a whopping fee in order to be a part of it. And why do the up and coming people not be a part of it? Because honestly, they couldn't afford it. The fees was just a lot just to be a part of a fashion show, and even to hold a solo show sponsored by yourself. Why have they ended? Because social media has taken over in such a way that every designer can now network, like you just mentioned, and they can reach out to an audience, and they're having all these orders online. I mean, I know so many fashion people who told me themselves, they said that people would think that businesses went down during COVID when the entire country was in lockdown. They said, but no, they worked out just fine for us because people were staying at home. They had access to social media, right? And with just a click of a button, they used used to order so many expensive clothes of ours that we were in good business.
Right.
So I feel that social media, internet, people having access to every designer that they want to purchase from or buy. So yeah, I feel that it's a good time to be alive.
Before we, conclude today's conversation in this regard, I think it's very important to talk about the very pivotal role of a fashion journalist like yourself. So in this regard, whereas of course you have that power to set trends, so to speak, how do you feel can fashion journalists like yourself also contribute to evolving or changing fashion trends within cultures, considering of course that, people like yourself, you have that opportunity to travel so much?
Of course. Well, thanks for this question, Fatma. I would just say that your social media accounts are just, they capture a true essence of what a person really is. So I feel that whenever I travel, the way I would look at an object, even if it's like a rock in my hand, the way I would romanticize with that object, post a fun comment with it, add a brief history, this is how I will reach out to my audience and they will enjoy it. Maybe I'll have more likes than a person standing next to Bill Clinton. Why? Because it's just the way how you project things.
Right.
I was in London 3.5 years ago, and I remember posing in front of tourist attractions, and I was going about the city, having a nice time. And I remember that one of my friends whose London was their hometown, she told me that, oh my God, you are making my city look beautiful. Now, why did she say that? Because she wasn't a lifestyle journalist. The way she would capture things and look at her and her environment is going to be a lot different than how I am going to go
And you
about
have that perspective and that skill to do the same, Saira, which is, I think, very important because people like yourself, given that, you have such a wide perspective, so much exposure of different cultures, you people have a very important role to play with regards to this. On which I'll come to you, sir. Now, before we conclude today's show, what would your tips be to all those designers out there, young designers particularly, who do want to make that mark, but unfortunately do not have the resources to do the same? So what tips be in this regard, that how can they make it big with the limited resources that they do have?
I think they need to have couple of basic elements in their design as well. Number one is the quality of the deliverable, the product. And the most important thing, they can be sincere to the customer.
Right.
It's like if a chubby guy comes in and he says, I want a slim fit, you need to be sincere enough to tell him that, no, sir, this is not what you want in a suit.
Right.
You might want a little more loose suit, right? Not just give it to him what he wants. So that sincerity, if they have it in that, I think the people and the customer actually acknowledge that.
Right.
And they will fall in love with that designers. That would be my advice for them.
On which I'll come to you, Sara, and before we conclude today's show, my last question to you would be that, what are the most common myths that you, in your career as a fashion designer, have come across, and how would you actually debunk the same?
When I was younger and I was designing, I always had because I studied fashion from a French school and then a British school, so in Pakistan though. And our conception and our perception was that, when you talk about fashion, you talk about couture and you talk about luxury, and it has to be very pricey. Later on in practical life, when you start working, you realize that, fashion should be more approachable and, it should be more affordable for all masses. And I don't think that you sell well more because you're making very expensive clothes. You can make good clothes and they could not be very expensive and they'd still be good. And you could wear the most expensive outfit and not look great because, it's just not a really great outfit. So definitely it's a myth. That, if it's an expensive outfit, it's really good. And again, the responsibility falls on designers for, talking about this and, bringing out collections which are more appropriate for the masses, and of course then cater to all segments of society, and you could still be a really good
I would also want to add here that the responsibility also falls on the media and journalists per se too. On which note I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Saira. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, Sara, for choosing to be a part of our show. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about the ever evolving Pakistan's dynamic fashion industry. We spoke about the positives which we do see emerging happening generally in this industry. We understand the fact that, overall Pakistan's fashion industry over a period of time has not only become more inclusive, it has definitely become more diverse too. One thing that we do need to work upon, however, is the fact that we need to actively strive to make it more sustainable as well. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.